Welcome back to The Explainer, 8th graders. I am absolutely pumped today because we are diving straight into one of the most epic, fiery, and honestly, foundational debates in all of American history. And when I say fiery, I mean that literally. Picture this, okay? It's the summer of 1787. You're in Philadelphia. The windows are completely nailed shut to keep the proceedings top secret. It is sweltering hot, absolutely miserable, and the tempers inside that room are just boiling over. We're talking about the incredible clash of ideas that originally shaped the entire United States government. So grab your notes and get ready, because understanding what happened back then is literally the ultimate key to understanding how our country operates today. All right, let's just shatter a massive historical myth right out of the gate. A lot of people picture the Founding Fathers sitting in this quiet, peaceful room, writing the Constitution, shaking hands, and entirely agreeing on everything. Yeah, no way. That could not be further from the truth. When this brand new document was proposed, it sparked a massive nationwide argument. People were incredibly divided, passions were high, and the future of the nation hung completely in the balance. So what exactly happens when the brilliant minds trying to build a country fundamentally disagree on how to actually do it? To answer that, we really shouldn't look at this historical disagreement as a disaster. Actually, it was absolutely essential. Think about this piece of wisdom from Proverbs 11:14. Without wise leadership, a nation falls. There is safety in having many advisors. I mean, can you imagine the pressure of knowing your argument might literally make or break a brand new country? The founders weren't just arguing for the sake of being difficult. They were acting as those many advisors. They knew that setting up a new nation was incredibly dangerous, and to make sure it was safe and successful, they needed to hash out every single detail, debate every angle, and test every single idea. That conflict was 100% necessary to build something that would last. Okay, let's move into Section 1, Federalists versus Anti-Federalists. Let's step right into the political ring and meet the two heavyweight teams who battled over how the American government should actually work. Oh, and if you're looking for the answers to your homework questions, you are definitely going to want to pay close attention right here. So, on one side, we've got the Federalists. Who were their leaders? You've got Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. And their core belief? They wanted a really strong central government. Why? Because they believed a strong national government was an absolute necessity for stability, national defense, and economic growth. They fully supported the Constitution exactly as it was written. Now, Hamilton was known to literally speak for hours on end just to get his highly analytical points across. But in the opposite corner, we have the Anti-Federalists. These guys were led by fierce voices like Patrick Henry and George Mason. And instead of hours of analytical speeches, Patrick Henry was famous for these fiery, emotional appeals about liberty. So what were the Anti-Federalists so afraid of? Well, they were terrified that a central government with too much power would just become a tyrant, trampling right over individual freedoms and the rights of the individual states. They demanded specific, written protections for everyday citizens. That brings us to Section 2, the tools of the trade and the compromise. So we've got two brilliant teams with two completely opposite visions for the country. How do they move forward? How do they fight this battle of ideas? And more importantly, how do they eventually find a crucial middle ground? Well, to win a fight like this, you need way more than just a loud voice. You need intellectual weapons. You have to persuade the public, which brings up another great question from your lesson. What was the actual purpose of the Federalist Papers? How did the Federalists try to convince everyone else that their idea of a strong government was the right way to go? Well, the Federalist Papers were basically this brilliant series of persuasive essays. Hamilton and Madison, along with John Jay, used these essays to go directly to the people. They wrote them to defend the newly proposed Constitution. Actually, scratch that, it wasn't just to defend it. They meticulously explained its entire structure to the public. And what's absolutely fascinating is that they wrote these in secret. They published them in newspapers under the fake Roman name Publius. They used these documents to argue point by point why a strong national government was absolutely necessary to hold this fragile new nation together and keep it from falling into total chaos. It was a true masterpiece of political persuasion. But, you know, the Anti-Federalists were incredibly stubborn. And honestly, they had a great point. Persuasion alone just wasn't going to cut it. They needed a guarantee. This wasn't going to be settled with a friendly handshake and a smile. It was a non-negotiable demand. And this perfectly illustrates the major turning point, the Bill of Rights promise. To get those anti-federalist states on board to finally ratify or officially approve the Constitution, a massive compromise had to be made. The Federalists guaranteed in writing that they would add specific citizen protections to the Constitution immediately after it was passed. So, thinking back to the deep anxieties of guys like Patrick Henry and George Mason, we really have to ask, how did the Federalists practically address those fears of tyranny and government overreach? They obviously couldn't just ignore them or talk over them anymore. They addressed them by achieving balance. So the crucial takeaway here is that the Federalists got the strong central government they knew the country desperately needed to survive, but the Anti-Federalists got the written, guaranteed individual rights they knew the citizens needed to stay free. By promising the Bill of Rights, the Federalists directly addressed those fears of tyranny while keeping the structure of the national government entirely intact. And I mean it, this is honestly one of the most successful political compromises in human history. Moving right along to Section 3, why this matters today. Now, you might be sitting there right now thinking, okay, this is great history, but why does this matter to me today? How does a 200-year-old debate affect my life right now? Well, think about this final homework question. Why is compromise important in government? If the Federalists and Anti-Federalists hadn't compromised back then, the United States as we know it simply wouldn't exist. The Constitution would have completely failed. Compromise wasn't a sign of weakness. It was literally the essential glue that held a diverse nation of different advisors together. And let me tell you, we still desperately need that glue today. Because look around, the debate never actually ended. Every single time you turn on the news and see politicians arguing about government spending or individual freedoms or state powers versus federal powers, you are watching the exact same debate the founders started all those years ago. The balance of power and liberty is still the central heartbeat of U.S. politics. We are literally living out the legacy of the Great Compromise right now. And finally, Section 4, True Education and Morality. As we wrap up this history lesson, I kind of want to take a step back and talk to you not just as a host, but as a mentor. Learning all these historical facts is incredibly important, for sure, but we need to look at the broader philosophy behind why we're educating ourselves in the first place. Here at HeroesMart Academy, the Godly Learners series intentionally intertwines biblical morality with education for one very simple yet powerful reason. Education without morality will hurt. Take a second and just think about that. What is the actual point of being incredibly smart, memorizing all the facts about the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, and being supposedly highly educated if you just continue to make bad choices that end up hurting yourself and the people around you? True education isn't just about filling your head with trivia. It's about shaping your character so you can use that knowledge to build people up rather than tear them down. And that leads perfectly into this wonderful promise in Romans 8:6-7, which guarantees peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. This is our experience, and it's the exact same experience we see when people truly engage with what they learn on a deep moral level. When you combine the brilliant analytical thinking of a constitutional scholar with the spiritual mindfulness of a moral compass, you don't just get a smart student. You get true peace of mind, and you become a leader who is ready to positively change the world. The Founding Fathers used their education and their morals to draft a compromise that quite literally changed history. So when your time comes to step into the debate, will you have the wisdom to do the same? Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.